Previously on the Skip and Josh podcast.
I just want anyone but the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I don't even care who it is as long as it's not the Patriots. Because then I'm going to have to hear about Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and Rob Gronkowski for the next 2 weeks every freaking year. How many years in a row am I going to have to hear that?
The Skip and Josh podcast is on now.
Welcome to the annual Super Bowl preview of the Skip and Josh podcast. Josh here, and of course I'm with Skip. Welcome, Skip.
Thanks. Well, thanks for coming into my basement again to record.
Glad to be here. And as usual, we always like to bring on a special guest for a special episode like this. And so, of course, today we've brought on our football expert, and he's also an expert in many other things. But please welcome a returning guest to the show, friend of the show, Neil Schnurback. Welcome, Neil.
It's great to be here, guys. Always a pleasure. You don't need to wait till the Super Bowl to invite me next time. I'm happy to talk about playoffs too, you know?
Well, the last time we had you on was the football preview, right?
True.
And we also had you on for March Madness.
Yes,
Yeah.
no, that's fair.
But
That's
I think
fair.
it's
I'm just
great.
saying in the football season, you know, I'm doing like the first episode and the last one. You could throw me on somewhere in the middle too if you want.
But I think it's great that we had you on for the football preview, you know, to start the season, and then now, like, to end the season.
It's like bookends.
Yeah, but do you remember, like, what our predictions were for Super Bowl, all three of us?
Well,
Do you remember?
Neil was, I don't remember the Super Bowl predictions, but Neil said that the Eagles would be the team to go from last to first, and he was right about that. Neil also said that the Jacksonville Jaguars would have a good season, and he was right about that too.
Right.
I think, Neil, you did say that the Seahawks would be in the Super Bowl. Did you not say that?
I think I had that too.
That is a tremendous memory because, yes, that's what I said. I did say it was going to be Patriots Seahawks in the Super Bowl, but I was really bullish on the Eagles this year. So not surprised to see them there.
I was bullish on them too, and I didn't know if it was just like my Eagles fandom, you know, kind of taking over, or you know, like how much of it was like the rational me versus the fan me in me. And I mean, like, obviously now Super Bowl weekend, I'm like completely overtaken by like the fandom, so like I will not be rational.
Understood, but like I said, you know, not to go back too far into the preseason, but really the underlying numbers for the Eagles in 2016 were very good. They were the most unlucky team in 2016, so it's really not that surprising that they had a great year this year. And of course, Carson Wentz took the next step, but that's too bad he won't be playing this game.
Yeah, it is too bad because he really like. He took a step that a lot of people didn't really foresee, you know? He didn't have a great rookie season. He had a good rookie season, ups and downs, and then just started 2017 just on fire, you know? Like, he was a different player. I noticed a difference in him. Like, last year, he was almost unable to throw a screen pass. Like, he had no touch, you know? And now, all of a sudden, he's, like, making all these plays and plays out of nothing, and just, like, I just found he was a quarterback that you never felt you were out of the game with him there, you know?
Yeah, I agree. The deep ball too. I thought his deep ball accuracy was so much better this year. And when I thought the Eagles were going to be better this year, I thought it was going to be in spite of Wentz. I really wasn't too sold on Wentz as a great player, but in reality, he was obviously a key cog.
One thing I'll say about the NFL in general, one thing they do really well is, as you know, your schedule is based on your record from the previous year. So if you had a good record, you have a tougher schedule. If you had a bad record, you have an easier schedule. And that's why you see teams going from last to first and teams going from first to last.
And the Eagles
Right.
had the benefit of playing in normally what's a tough division, the NFC East. But the Redskins were not good. The Giants were not good.
And the Cowboys lost Ezekiel
were-
Elliott for 6 games.
Exactly. And the Cowboys were average at best, you know? So they were able to, like, the divisional games, which are usually so much, like, in contention, you know? Like, it go either way. Like, they just steamrolled them. And it really started in week 3. Like, I don't want to get too much into the Eagles, how the season went. But, you know, they started off the season 1-1. They had a loss to Kansas City, which was, you know, hottest team in the league at the time. And then in
Right,
week
similar
3
to the Pats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then in week 3, they played the Giants. And you didn't know how bad the Giants were yet. And you didn't know how good the Eagles were yet. It was week 3. And they beat the Giants on that 61-yard field goal by rookie Jake Elliott, who was replacing Caleb Sturgis, the injured kicker. And, like, from that kick, the whole season just went one way. Like, it was a trajectory, you know, that just took off, and they never looked back. Honestly, they never looked back after that miracle field goal.
So let's get to the task at hand because all the listeners are waiting for the much anticipated Super Bowl preview. So both of you, if I'm not mistaken, predicted before the season began that New England would be in the Super Bowl.
I think Neil had the Pats and the Seahawks, but I might have had the Steelers and the Seahawks.
Oh,
just
okay.
to show how
All right.
wrong I was there.
So, and this is why we've brought you on today as one of our experts. The format of today's show is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be moderating, and we've got our New England expert, Neil, on the line, and we've got our Philly expert, you, here with us in studio. I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Patriots are 4.5-point favorites to win the Super Bowl. So, Neil, first, if you could tell the listeners, what is the difference between this year's New England Patriots and last year's New England Patriots, who also won the Super Bowl?
Yeah, sure. I think a big difference offensively, for one, is Julian Edelman's injury. I think it's really changed how the attack looks. You're not looking at as many kind of quick slants, quick hitches in terms of the passes. But a part of that as well is that the Patriots picked up Brandon Cooks in the offseason. So there's been a lot more deep ball passing from the Patriots this year than we're used to seeing. You saw that against the Jaguars. There are a couple of very big pass interference penalties that Cooks drew, and also a couple of big plays that he had as well. He had 100 yards receiving in that game. Also, Gronk is back for the Super Bowl. He was obviously a part of the team last year, but he didn't play in the Super Bowl. On the defensive side of the ball, I think Stephon Gilmore, the acquisition of Stephon Gilmore is quite big. So that now there's really a shutdown corner on one side of the field. What's unfortunate, though, is that Malcolm Butler, who was really supposed to be sort of cornerback 1A for the Pats, has really regressed this year. So it really looked like we were going to have, the Patriots were going to have two really strong cornerbacks. And in reality, Gilmore has been good, especially after week 4, and Butler has been average to below average. But that's really, I would say, the main difference.
And now, Skip, I'll pose a similar question to you as an Eagles fan and a diehard Philly supporter. I know how it is in this household when the Eagles are on television. The Eagles had a remarkable turnaround this season. What are the differences, and why? What can you attribute to their turnaround and their excellent record this year as opposed to the record they had last year?
Well, like I said kind of earlier, the development of Wentz into a rookie quarterback who looked just like a rookie, up and down, showed some promise, but really made a lot of mistakes and really couldn't make all the throws, into who would have been the MVP of the league, is obviously huge, right? But you can't just say that it's Wentz, because they've won 2 playoff games with Nick Foles, right? And not only that, they as much as you can say, Foles sucked the last few games of the year, they still kept that home field advantage, right? Which was very, very key to get them this far, because who knows if they wouldn't. They were able to keep that home field advantage. So you can't just say it's all Wentz. Now, Neil came on the show at the beginning of the year, and I remember he was talking about the DVOA of the Eagles, because they had really good defensive numbers last year. It was a strong defensive team, and it still is a strong defensive team. And they took the core of that defense and they just improved on it, right? They made acquisitions, Timmy Jernigan, Chris Long. They drafted Barnett, who's a defensive end. He was their first round pick. And they're the front four. I told you when they were playing Atlanta why I thought they would beat Atlanta. It's because the offensive line is so strong and the defensive line is so strong. So when you control the line of scrimmage, you control the game. Right? And that's what they do most games, right? And then when you have, look, Howie Roseman won Executive of the Year, and with good reason, right? He brought in Alshon Jeffrey, right? He stole Jay Ajayi from the Dolphins, right? Like Garrett Blunt.
From the Patriots.
Yeah. He took a team that was good and just added the perfect pieces, right? Like literally the perfect pieces. And I'm going to tell you another thing that is the huge difference from that last year. Doug Peterson, the coach, deserves so much credit, because he was taking shots at the beginning of the year. No one gave him any, I remember hearing podcasts and reading articles about too bad the Eagles have such a bad coach. But you know what? They have a great coach. And that game plan, whatever they did against Minnesota, it's funny. I'm going to tell you and Neil this. He reminds me a lot of Belichick. Obviously, Belichick is in his own stratosphere. There's only one Bill Belichick. But what I always admired about Belichick is he would tailor the game plan around whatever is needed to win that game. That's why you saw LeGarrette Blount sometimes carry 30 times in a playoff game and then no times the next game, right? Or there's one game where they throw 600 screens, to like whatever Dion Lewis or whatever running back they had at the time. All they would do is just throw little passes. Whatever he sees as a weakness, that's what he goes for. And I feel that's what Doug Peterson has done in these 2 playoff games, because the game plan versus Atlanta versus the game plan versus Minnesota were completely different. And like I think he deserves a lot of credit for everything the Eagles are doing, well, mostly on offense, because Jim Schwartz is a defensive coach. It's almost like head coach 1 and 1A, so, but I mean, certainly on the offensive side of the ball, Doug Peterson, I can't wait to see what they're going to do against the Patriots, honestly.
Full disclosure, I didn't even know the name of the Eagles head coach until their first playoff game.
That's great.
I just want to agree with what you're saying there, Skip. To be honest, I was very impressed with the game plan against Minnesota. The deep passes, that's how you exploit Minnesota, is really in their secondary, especially after they had an injury early on in that game. So you have, I think 40-year-old Terrence Newman was playing DB, and Peterson really exploited that with a lot of deep throws. I was very impressed with how that game went.
Yeah, I mean, look, no one expected Nick Foles to. Let me tell you a stat. There's only 2 quarterbacks in history that have back-to-back playoff games with 75% completion percentage.
Who are they?
Joe Montana and Nick Foles.
I was going to guess Joe Montana as one of them.
That's the list.
You just made the list!
Right?
Nice.
Now, I know that's just one stat, but like, what can Nick Foles do in the Super Bowl? I don't know. Does he have to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns again? No, he doesn't. I think the defense is that good. And I think, you don't know, like Ajayi, Blount, you don't know like who's going to come up big. Like I feel every game there's a new hero, for the Eagles.
So Neil, my next question for you is, obviously the Patriots had no trouble winning their division and being the number 1 seed in the conference. And some may say that, they had a very easy schedule this season. And then in the playoffs, they won both their games in the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl. But they didn't play exactly 2 powerhouse teams to get there. So do you think that the reason the Patriots are in the Super Bowl again has to do with how good they are, or the favorable schedule that they had this season, or a little bit of both?
Well, you certainly can't argue, I guess, with the path they had to the Super Bowl to face the Titans and then the Jaguars, who I think are a phenomenal team and actually pose some pretty big matchup problems for the Patriots, but nonetheless, certainly an easier matchup than against the Steelers, and especially if they would have had to play the Steelers in Pittsburgh had the Steelers won that game in Week 14, I believe it was, against the Pats. But the Patriots are really a fantastic team that's gelled as the season has gone on. They had a bit of a rough start, starting 2-2, and then they lost 1 game the rest of the way. So yeah, in some respects, sure, they had a little bit of an easier schedule. They did play the AFC West, which is a decent conference this year. They still had to play all the first place teams from last year, but of course, yes, and the AFC East, the Bills made the playoffs this year, so they were a bit of a better team, I think, than people give them credit for. But nonetheless, yeah, I think the Patriots are really just they're still the class of the AFC, along with I suppose the Steelers.
And Skip, you alluded to the fact that the Eagles, the NFC East, thank you, was not very strong this year. But the NFC in general had a lot of 10-win teams.
Yeah.
So do you think that the Eagles were more tested during the regular season and even in the playoffs to get to the point that they're at now?
Well, I mean, they're definitely more tested because, who were the best teams in the NFC this year? Right?
The Vikings.
The Vikings, they beat them, right? The Falcons, they beat them. The Saints, they didn't get a chance to. The Rams, they beat them during the regular season. The Seahawks, they lost in Seattle, and there's no shame in that. Like, Seattle at home is a different beast, right? But I think they're definitely game tested. They're definitely game tested. And I just want to go back to the Patriots and the Jaguars, what you were asking, Neil. That AFC Championship game was really it was really interesting in that, look, the Patriots are great. There's no doubt, right? And they believe in themselves. I don't think there's any deficit that they don't think they can overcome, or any circumstance in the game that they don't think we can't win this game, right? But they had a lot of help in that AFC Championship game, because I don't know, Neil, if you'll agree with me, the Jaguars were playing like Dean Smith's like four corners offense, like from the start of the third quarter. I felt like they were trying to kill the clock as soon as the third quarter started. You know, it's like, let's run out the clock. We're going to win, you know?
But Neil, before you answer that, let me just say, at the end of the first half, when the Jaguars had the ball with about 50 seconds left in the half, they could have ran a few plays and maybe thrown a Hail Mary, and who knows? They just took a knee and let the half run out. That bothers me. Whether it's the Jaguars or any team, that bothers me so much. But anyway, Neil, I'll let you answer Skip's question.
Well, let's address what you just said first, actually, Cub, because I read, I think it was on Football Outsiders, that was the first time all season, I think, with that much time left. I think it was 45 or 50 seconds left, and all three timeouts, that any team kneeled down on the ball with that much time left in a half.
I felt like they just wanted to run out the clock like for 40 minutes, you know, like.
But I do think what really happened, to be honest, with the Jaguars, and what probably won't happen with the Eagles, is that the Jaguars have a very talented defense and a really talented defensive line, but they play the same four guys on their defensive line. So one thing the Patriots do really well, and you saw it last year in the Super Bowl against the Falcons as well, is that you run a lot of plays, you go really fast, you tire out the defensive line, and then Brady and the offense really get going, and then they start scoring at will.
Yeah.
The issue with the Eagles, and I guess I'm answering a different question than you asked, Josh, but the issue with the Eagles really is that there's so much depth along that defensive line that I don't think the Patriots are going to be able to tire out the Eagles' D-line during the course of this game.
I know they shuffle in 7 or 8 guys like all the time.
Right.
Only in the playoffs, Fletcher Cox has been playing pretty much all the downs, but other than that, everybody else is rotating around.
So Neil, it sounds to me like, and I haven't asked you for your prediction yet, but it sounds to me like you're not as optimistic for the Patriots this year as you were a year ago. Is that safe to say?
I mean, I would say yes. I still do think, if you look on the other side of the ball, to be honest, I think that the Eagles are going to have some difficulty moving the ball. The Patriots defense isn't elite, but at the same time, Nick Foles still is an inexperienced quarterback in terms of Super Bowl play. The Eagles do have a very talented offensive line, but the Patriots defensive line with guys like Dietrich Wise and Trey Flowers, guys who people have never heard of, but who are actually excellent players, they've been holding their own. They've allowed the least amount of points in the NFL since, I think, week 4 or week 5. So in reality, the Patriots defense is pretty solid. I think it's going to be difficult. I think you can attack the Eagles secondary. So I think Brandon Cooks is going to be a key to this game. But yeah, I would say I was more optimistic last year than I am this year. Yes.
It's amazing. Nick Foles in the Super Bowl, and you're more optimistic last year.
Yeah, no, in reality, I think the Eagles are a better team than the Falcons were. And can I also say, I don't understand why the Eagles were underdogs their first 2 games of the playoffs. Nick Foles is a serviceable quarterback.
Yeah.
And in reality, they had 2 home playoff games that they were underdogs. I didn't understand it. I picked the Eagles to win both those games, to be quite honest.
I understand why they were underdogs against Minnesota. Minnesota was one of the strongest teams in the league all year. But I don't think they should have been underdogs against Atlanta. Atlanta is so up and down. They're so inconsistent. They haven't really shown anything all year. And then to come into Philadelphia and to be the favorite, I felt like, you know what? I felt that just amped up the Eagles defense, and they're like, there's no way, there's no way we're losing this game. And it was damn close, let me tell you.
I have a question for both of you. Neil, you can answer first. I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. If Minnesota had won last week and the Patriots were playing the Vikings in Minnesota, what do you think the point spread would be in this Super Bowl?
That's a good question.
We're taking a page out of Bill Simmons' Guess the Lines, with how do you guess the lines? Guessing the lines is so hard.
I think it would have been Patriots by 1.5.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I still think the Patriots would have been favored, but it would have been damn close. Maybe even 1 point.
It would have been interesting to see a Super Bowl with a team playing at home for the first time.
Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah, in some respects, I feel like in some ways that's patently unfair, but it is what it is. It'll happen one of these years.
Yeah, the one advantage that I really, as an Eagles fan, what I'm really scared of is all the experience on the Patriots. I just don't want the Eagles to get caught up in the Super Bowl week, and the interviews and the hype, and I just don't want that. And the Patriots are like, ho-hum, been there, done that. Like, this is not going to affect them at all. So I am a little bit worried, like, what was the name of the guy on the Falcons that got arrested the night before the Super Bowl? Like
Eugene Robinson.
Eugene Robinson.
I'm going way back there.
Yeah, this is when they played
the Dirty Bird.
Yeah, the Dirty Bird years.
Birds, exactly.
Yeah. Like, I'm scared of like that. That's what I'm scared of. Like of
Sure.
like some weird thing happening this week.
So
Well, you have 2 Super Bowl champions from last year on your team. So who knows?
Well,
Especially Chris Long's a great veteran presence. I think hopefully you can keep some of those guys in line.
Can I talk about Chris Long? It's coming out now because it's the Super Bowl week and there's hype. But I mean, I've known this for the whole year. Chris Long is playing the entire year with no salary. He's donated his entire salary for the season to a charity in I forget where it is. It's in Tennessee or it's wherever they live, right? So like,
is this
like,
Howie Long's son?
yeah, like what a
Yes.
guy. Like honestly, like what is like? Can you even put your mind around that? Yeah, I'm gonna play for free this year.
That's
It's phenomenal.
Yeah,
That's even more incredible than what J.J. Watt did this year for Houston.
Well, no, I mean, J.J. Watt raised $30 million in
Right.
19 days. This
But
is
it
pretty
wasn't
amazing.
his 30
It wasn't
million.
his $30 million. Yeah.
So-
yeah.
So actually, Neil, you brought up a good point, and I'm glad you reminded me. With LeGarrette Blount being on the Eagles this year, having been on the Patriots last year, do you think, I mean, obviously he probably himself has a lot of incentive to perform well in this game. Do you think that's going to be a factor at all in the outcome?
No.
I don't. I actually don't. I don't think Blunt's even going to play much, to be honest. I think he's probably going to be the third option this game behind Ajayi and then Clement. That's his name, right?
Corey
Who's,
Clement.
yeah. So who I think is going to catch some balls out of the backfield. I think that might be a factor. But Blunt is. I mean, if they get near the goal line, you could certainly push it in, and yeah, he's got incentive. But I think once you get to the Super Bowl, everyone has incentive. So. I don't love Blunt as a player. He's fine.
He's going to get less than 10 carries, and you're right. He may score a touchdown because they're going to give him the ball if they're inside the 5. But he is like exactly what he is. He's this goal line back now, right? That's
right.
his role.
That's his role at this point. Yeah.
So here's a question for both of you, and I don't know who wants to answer first, but Skip, I need to know what needs to happen in order for the Eagles to win this game, and Neil, what needs to happen in order for the Patriots to win this game?
I'll go first. So they can't turn the ball over. I know it's a cliche, and I know obviously they don't need to turn the ball over, but like Nick Foles has to take care of the ball, and I feel he can do that. And I feel they need at least one big defensive. I think the Eagles need to get a defensive touchdown. I know it's crazy, but like I really feel they need a defensive score to win the game. Like that's something that they need to do, because I think straight up it's going to be tough to. Their defense is going to be challenged against Brady. Like I'm sure they've played against maybe better offenses this year, but not Brady. Brady, like what I read this week and I listened to it on a podcast. It's like Brady's biggest strength happens before they snap the ball. He surveys the field. He knows exactly where he's going to throw the ball. He reads the defenses. There's all this experience. There's all this confidence. There's all this confidence in him from his team. And I think that's something you can't measure, So I think the Eagles are in tough, but they need a defensive score, and Foles needs to play well, not great. Well,
But Neil, before you answer your question,
Sure.
I have a follow-up for Skip. If the Eagles have a 10 or 15 or 20 point lead in the fourth quarter, similar to what the Jaguars had and similar to what the Falcons had, are they going to be able to hold that lead?
Yes, they will. I'll tell you why. Because Doug Peterson is not the kind of coach that is just it's not going to be 3 yards in a cloud of dust. He's not going to just say, we're going to run the ball and kill the clock. He's going to go for first downs. They're going to still play aggressive. And I think the Eagles defense is battle tested enough that they can withstand anything, at that point, what they're going to be able to throw at them.
Okay, Neil, so now what do the Patriots need to do in order to win this game?
Sure. I think if you look at big games that the Patriots have lost in the Belichick-Brady era, of which there haven't been too many, but there have been some, there's always the same thing always happens, and that is the opposition can pressure Brady with traditional 4 pass rushers. So if the Eagles are forced to blitz, Brady can read a blitz. He'll find the open receiver. They'll get down the field easily. If they're rushing 4 and they're playing a zone behind it, Brady Brady will pick apart the zone. But what happens is, in all honesty, if you can rush with 4 guys and not give Brady time, that's really the magic potion. It's just not that easy to do. The Patriots have a pretty solid offensive line. But like I said earlier, the Eagles have a fairly strong defensive line that has a lot of depth. So I do think, it could potentially be an issue. I also think that big plays for the Patriots are going to be key this game. I think getting Brandon Cooks streaking across the sideline, testing those Eagles defensive backs. I think that the Patriots are going to have to do that, maybe hit a big play on offense to loosen the screws a little bit on defense and allow Gronk and Amendola to kind of roam the middle and catch those passes that the Patriots are known for. I do think they're going to have to take the top off the defense at least once this game as well for them to win the game. And then hopefully, if the Patriots have a lead late in the game, it's going to be very difficult to run the ball. With the Eagles have, I believe, at last I saw, the number 1 rush defense in the NFL. So I think that's going to be an interesting one. I wonder who in the Patriots backfield is going to get the majority of the carries of the playing time. If it's going to be a Dion Lewis or a Rex Burkhead or a James White game. I have a suspicion that much like last year, it's going to be James White handling a lot of the load this year.
Yeah, Eagles are very tough to run against. The run defense stat is true; they're the number 1 run defense, but there's 2 reasons for that. Number 1, the defense is really good against the run, but also they were up in so many games that teams stopped running, right? So it's a bit of a weird stat. I do agree with you, though. The key for the game, if I can what do they call this? You're a lawyer. What do they call this?
Rebuttal?
I have a rebuttal. Yeah, I have a second chance. I think Fletcher Cox is key to the game because, like Neil said, the Eagles need to get a pass rush with 4 guys, which they can do. They've proven that they can do that. That's what they do. But what makes the Eagles pass rush so different? Most teams, the guys who get the sacks are the ends, or the defensive ends, the speed rushers. The Eagles' case, maybe that is true, but the biggest press comes from right in the middle with Fletcher Cox. And I think he's going to be at in Brady's face, not necessarily sacking him, but just basically closing down that pocket, pushing him into maybe uncomfortable positions. That's where I think Fletcher Cox is going to excel.
And honestly, if that happens, the Patriots are going to really have a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think Fletcher Cox, far and away on either team, is the best defensive player on either team. And I do think he's going to make a big difference this game.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. Fletcher Cox, I mean, he doesn't get, obviously everyone in the league knows how great he is, but he doesn't put up huge sack numbers, because he plays like in the middle he's a defensive tackle, right? But he's so tremendous. It's like he really, he's the reason why they dominate the line most games,
So now this is we're going to start to close out this episode, but of course I'm going to want each of your predictions of this Super Bowl. So let's start with Neil. He's the guest on the show. Mm-hmm. Neil, how do you think the game's going to unfold? And if you can give us at least the team you think is going to win and maybe even a final score if you can.
Yeah, I feel like the Eagles might jump up to a bit of an early lead here. I do think the Patriots are going to have to make some halftime adjustments. But Belichick and Brady will figure out what to do. I feel like this is going to be a repeat of, was it Super Bowl 38 or 39? We're going to go 24-21 Patriots, just like last time these two teams played in the Super Bowl. Last time it was their 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years, and this is their 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years, so we'll see if history can repeat.
Skip is cringing as he hears what your analysis. But go ahead, Skip. How do you think this game's going to turn out?
I'm going to pick the Eagles. Obviously going more with my heart than my head. But I think it's similar score to what Neil said, though. I'll say 27-24. And can I ask a question, though? Like, I'm going to ask Neil.
You're allowed to ask questions.
So can you pick an MVP other than Brady? And I'll pick an MVP other than Foles?
Yeah, it's a good one. I think Brandon Cooks, if there's going to be a non-Brady MVP, I think he's going to be a key to this game.
He scares the hell out of me. The Eagles' corners are good, not great. They're mostly good because of the pressures that the quarterbacks are under, so they're not asked to do that much. So I'm a little bit worried about like a speed receiver like Cooks could expose them a little bit. But I think that's a good pick. Yeah, my pick is Malcolm Jenkins. I think I think he's the leader of the defense. And like I said, I think they're going to need a defensive score to win, and he's the guy to get it. So
nice.
Yeah.
You're calling out who's getting the defensive score.
I've watched
probably get like 5,000 to 1 in Vegas for Malcolm Jenkins scoring a touchdown. So
I've watched them all year, and I know how important he is on their team. Like, I mean, I'm sure you've heard it all week. You're going to hear it all week. Like, all the injuries, forget about Wentz, all the other injuries that the Eagles faced, right? They lost Jason Peters. Like, this guy's a perennial Pro Bowl, offensive lineman.
Sure.
Sproles the beginning of the year. And a big loss was Jordan Hicks. He's our starting middle linebacker. They've been playing without a middle linebacker since week 5. Now, I'm not saying like Jordan Hicks went out and they put someone else. No, they've been playing without a middle linebacker mostly since week 5. And they're able to do that because Malcolm Jenkins has become the de facto middle linebacker. He lines up all over the field, and he lines up in weird positions. Sometimes he's a strong safety, free safety. He lines up as a linebacker. He lines up as a corner. Like he's like the Swiss Army knife for the defense. So I'm really like a Malcolm Jenkins guy.
Swiss Army knife. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Even if Jenkins doesn't score, I actually think he's going to be a key to this game because I think he's going to see a lot of Gronkowski this game as well.
Yeah, Gronk is obviously a matchup nightmare for anybody. So, like, I know it's selfish and it sounds weird, but I hope he has a concussion still and he's not 100% when he plays.
I'd be very surprised if he doesn't play. I think
he's going to play, but like, maybe he's not going to be 100%,
But can you imagine? Can you imagine the Patriots won last year without Gronk, and he's arguably their best player other than Brady.
Well, he's a matchup nightmare.
And they're going to have him. Theoretically, they're going to have him the entire game, so that makes them that much better.
I don't know who can cover Gronk. Honestly, like it's incredible. Like he's a matchup nightmare for every team. It's a big part of their success. Yeah.
For sure.
They also actually, after he got injured against the Jaguars, the Patriots were actually better in that part of the game than they were when they had him.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously just a coincidence, but
yeah, exactly. Like I say, I think it was more a product of the Jaguars tiring on defense and a little desperation mode from the Patriots than anything to do with Gronkowski, who actually looked like he was just starting to get into the groove of that game when he got nailed in the head and left.
Mm-hmm.
So Skip has some fun prop bets he wants to chat about as we close out the show. So let's hear some of these.
Well, it's not as much to chat about. I just like looking these up because I think they're funny.
They're hilarious.
And these are not even the funniest ones, but like how many clips of the last Super Bowl between the Eagles and the Patriots will be shown? Over under 2.5. Like to me, it's over.
I think that's an easy over.
Yeah. How many times are they going to mention Carson Wentz? Like obviously.
Well, so what's the over under on that one?
3.5. To me, it has to be
way over.
I think it's going to be over that as well.
Well,
yes.
I say it's over 3.5 in the first quarter.
Yeah, I agree. Which owner will be mentioned first or shown first?
It's got to be Bob Kraft. Yeah. He's more well known.
Well, here they're not giving odds; they're doing minus 130, minus 110. So that's like if you bet 100, how much you get.
Yep.
Will Donovan McNabb's vomiting incident in the huddle be mentioned?
That's so disgusting! Oh my God, that's the worst thing I ever heard in my life.
For sure.
Yes,
this is all going to happen in the first quarter.
No, plus 200. You get big odds for a no. Will Terrell Owens' name be mentioned? I think so.
See, that one maybe not. Yeah, I would say,
he was an important player the last time they played in the Super Bowl, but yeah.
For sure, and he had a great game, but he wasn't really a mainstay on those Eagles teams.
There's a good one. Just because of what we saw in the conference championship games, will either team use a flea flicker? Yes, plus 300, no, minus 500.
I'm going to go with no.
Yeah, I think you're right because they've seen it already, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The Patriots actually ran, one was a flea flicker, and then one was that weird play that Dion Lewis fumbled on, which I guess wasn't a flea flicker, but it was like a double throwback that was kind of like a flea flicker.
I was happy that they ran that double throwback because that means they're not going to run it in the Super Bowl. Right?
You wouldn't think so.
Yeah, but he has to have other tricks up his sleeve. Yeah.
Yeah, knowing the Patriots, they'll run that play, but run it differently.
Right.
So, Amendola will throw like a deep pass instead of a swing pass to Lewis. Who knows?
How many times will the Rocky statue be shown? Under over one. I think it has to be shown once, right?
Yeah, it's got to be shown. I think someone put a Patriots jersey on the Rocky statue.
Oh, man. That's crazy.
There's one thing I want you to do for me.
What?
Come here.
What?
Win. Win.
What are we waiting for?
And then the other thing is how many tweets is President Trump going to tweet like during the game? So
what's the over under?
It's 5. It's like over under 5.
I think it's
I
under.
would take the under. Yeah, I'd take the under. He likes the Patriots. I think he's just going to watch the game.
He's so anti-NFL. I don't think he's going to want to like give them any attention, right?
Yeah, but he's pro Bob Kraft. You have to.
He's
remember
pro Bob
that
Kraft.
as well.
Yeah, that's true.
He's pro Bob Kraft. He's a good friend of Bob Kraft. One prop bet that would be interesting is I just mentioned this to you guys off air, but the Patriots have never scored in the first quarter in any of their 7 previous Super Bowls in the Brady Belichick era. So I wonder if they're actually going to score some points this time around. I actually have a feeling that they're really going to play to get rid of that negative stat, and I think they're just maybe they'll run some hurry up or whatever just so they can even at least score a field goal in the first quarter.
Well, they are going to run hurry up. They're going to run hurry up during the game because so the Eagles can make their defensive substitutions. But like for me, I hope they don't score in the first quarter. I hope this trend continues.
You know, it's interesting. It's almost as if the Patriots want to give their opponents like a lead and then like, oh, now we have to come back from this crazy deficit, because it seems like that happens all the time with the Patriots.
It's like it's not just enough to win the game. They have to give themselves like a bonus challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they were definitely the Eagles in the last Super Bowl that they played. The Eagles certainly were up 7-0, if I remember correctly. I don't remember that much about the game. I remember that. Well, for one interesting anecdote is that I had just I had hernia surgery on the Thursday before that game, so God. I was hopped up on meds during that game. So I don't remember it as well as I do the other Super Bowls in the Brady Belichick era, but I do remember that McNabb throwing up in the huddle.
Yeah. That game being like the score is close. Like when you look at the final score now, you're like, oh, it was a close game, but it really wasn't, right? I think the Eagles scored a touchdown like very, very late, and then that was kind of like brought the score closer. But I just remember thinking it was never really in doubt, you know?
Yeah, so it was like, I think it was 24-14 with about 10 minutes left, and then for some reason McNabb ran this drive.
It took like 7-minute drive.
Minutes
yeah.
Clock. And so they were forced to go for the onside kick and, missed the onside kick. I think the Patriots did punt it back. I'm remembering now. Patriots punted it back to the Eagles with like 10 seconds left, and then Rodney Harrison picked one off to seal the game.
Good memory.
So something we've discovered on today's episode, Neil and I have yet something else in common. We've both had hernia surgery.
There you go.
Yes, there you go.
I'm not part of that club. I have my appendix out.
Not yet.
All right.
No, I got nothing else. Do you have anything else?
I'm feeling good. I'm just ready for the game. Let's play some football.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait. I think it's going to be a great Super Bowl.
So, Neil, where are you watching the game?
It's a good question. I think I'm going to be watching at home. Usually when the Patriots play, I sort of watch at home. I allow my brothers to come over, and that's it, because they know me well enough.
You need to focus.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they'll leave me alone. So like I'm going to have I'm going to have the TV on in my den as well as my living room. And so, like, the main TV will be the living room, but if I need some alone time, I could go to the den, and my brothers will understand that.
That's really good. I like that. Yeah.
And Skip, where are you watching?
Probably here. We've had this rotating Super Bowl party with the same group of friends over the years. It got complicated this year. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. So, and also the other thing is, like, my son is the reason why I am an Eagles fan, right? Like, it's happened over like the last 5 years, and now I'm like sucked into it, right? He said like, like my wife said, why don't you go watch at a friend's house if we don't have a party here? And he's like, no, I want to watch the game with Dad, like we have to watch together. So we're definitely going to watch together, but he'll probably have a couple friends over, and we'll make some Philly cheesesteaks.
Of course.
And we'll go from there.
That sounds awesome.
So thanks, Neil, for being on the show again. And next time we'll have you on. Get ready for March Madness, because I think that's the next time you'll be on our show. We'll try to get you on a more regular basis, so that our listeners get acquainted with your dulcet tones.
Maybe we should have a golf episode where you can really,
for sure, have me on before the Masters.
You can explain the nuances of like fantasy golf.
I love fantasy golf. There is nothing like daily fantasy golf, but we can get into that another time.
Oh my God.
So thanks for being on the show. We really appreciate it, and we certainly enjoy your insight and analysis. We didn't hear any like DVOAs or any kind of interesting stats today, which is usually my favorite part of having Neil on the show. But we can always look forward to that next time we have you on.
Yeah, I tried to throw some X's and O's out to you. But yeah, no, I didn't give you any of the advanced stats.
As soon as he started talking, the first question you asked, And then I looked over at you and I'm like, I gave Josh a look like, this is why Neil's on. You know, he knows what he's talking about.
All right, well, enjoy the game, everyone. Hope that there's good eats at all your parties, and let's we'll after the game on our next episode we can see how right or wrong we both were. We all were.
Beautiful.
Look forward to it.
All right, thanks, Neil.
All right, take care, guys.
So before we sign off, remember you can listen and subscribe to new and archived episodes of the Skip and Josh podcast wherever you listen to podcasts: Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google Play, the podcast app of your choice. And if you listen through Apple, make sure you give us a review. And like I mentioned last week, a few episodes ago, tell a friend about the podcast. If you're listening, you probably subscribed, but tell a friend. Let's spread the word of mouth. If we'd love to hear from you via email. We've been doing listener mail almost every episode. So skipandjoshshow@gmail.com, via Twitter @skipandjosh, or by liking and following our Facebook page. And as always, you can get the links to everything I just said on our website, skipandjosh.com.
The Skip and Josh podcast is over now. Don't worry, there'll be another episode soon.